Alright guys, welcome back. This is part 2 of an absolute beginner's Steel Division 2 guide. In this video we're going to have a look at actually playing the game using some of the units that I talked about in the previous video and how we can use them and why we want to use them in that way. So what I'm going to do first here is go to solo and skirmish. Now, if I explain quickly what we can see on this screen, this gives us the players on both teams. So I'm on the red team, the allies, and the AI is on the gray team, blue team, and they're playing Axis. And for this one I'm just going to play against a pre-made battle group. My own division here is called Grupper's Back Team. Now actually I don't want to use that one. I want to use one I made earlier. Here we go. And on the left side here we just have the game options. We have the battlefield, which I've set to random, but which you can choose as you like. We have the combat rules. Standard rules are capture the flag. The deployment mode, standard rule is meeting engagement. Whether the teams are allies versus Axis or some other variation of that. Starting resources, which is how many points you have to spend before the game actually begins. That means your initial deployment of forces, you can use 750 points. 750 points is usually the standard amount, but you can change it again however you like. The income rate factor affects your income here. So if it's times 1, you will get 140 points per minute. If you increase it to 1.5, you'll get 50% more than that, so you'll get 210 per minute, and so on. And duration here reflects how fast your or your opponent's points will go down as you take objectives from them. Of course, standard is 1, income rate factor, the standard is also 1. That being said, I'll just press launch now. And we will go into the loading screen for a few seconds, and I'll drink some coffee while that does its magic. Okay, here we go, deployment phase. So you get two deployment options. You can auto deploy, and the AI will just basically choose what units it thinks you should have and where they should go, and do everything for you. Of course, if you want to play better than an AI, you will probably want to do manual deployment. So what can we see here? All of these little symbols in red and blue are the objective markers. If you want to win the game, you're going to have to take more objectives than you currently hold at the start. Now in this case we can see here 12 and 12. Both players start with 12 objectives. If I can take one of these objectives at the front line from my opponent by holding it with my units, then my opponent's points, represented by these bars here, will start to go down, and that's how you win. So what you're trying to look at, any game you play, any match you play, no matter what map it is how are you going to defend your objectives while also taking objectives from your opponent. And in many cases, the easiest way to do that is to try and take the objectives that are the closest to this line in the middle. And in these cases, that would be this one here, and this one in the forest here. Now there is one small issue with that. If we zoom in a little bit, not a little bit, quite a lot, and we use middle mouse button to change the camera angle and have a look at the elevation, what we can see here is that this is like a kind of basin, and strategically this is a very bad position to move your units into because it's overlooked by all of these hills here where your opponent can put their units and chop your units that you place into the basin here into very, very small pieces. So it's not only about trying to get the closest objective, but perhaps just the closest objective that is strategically viable for you to take. So in those cases, or in this case, actually this objective here looks quite tempting because, well, I can get my units into this forest here and then move them up to take this objective fairly easily. And if we press the C key, C will show you if you have a unit at this point on the map. This is as far as your unit's vision extends. So if I have units in this forest here, they cannot see out of the forest. But likewise, any units outside of this radius here will also not be able to see my units in the forest either. So they will actually be quite well hidden and safe from any attacks from anything around the forest here, because they will be, for all intents and purposes, invisible to other units that are not in this small circle we can see here. So pressing the C key is a really valuable tool in Steel Division 2. It lets you see what your units can see, and like I said earlier, what can see them, which is equally important. So one of the first things I usually put down or decide that I want to use are the motorbike flamethrowers that I mentioned in the previous video. These units are very fast because they're on motorbikes, and so that makes them really excellent at quickly getting to locations and occupying those spaces before other units can get there. Other units on motorbikes will be able to get there at the same time, but any other units won't be able to. So when I have a look at the map here, the first thing I'm thinking is, what can I take that's a little bit behind the front line that I know my flamethrower units can get to before the enemy? And so what I see here is, it looks like these buildings are not too far from the front line, so I might be able to get some flamethrowers into those buildings. The same here. Certainly this forest. There's nothing to hide in here. That's not a very good place for infantry units most of the time. This town, it looks like I might be able to get some flamethrowers into the buildings here. Maybe into this forest here. But anywhere further down this road is just asking for them to be killed. So what I'll do is, I'll follow this road back to behind my own darker zone here, dark red zone. It's not really dark, but there's a colored zone here. And this zone is where you can actually place your units for deployment. You can't place them in this lighter area here. So if I want flamethrower units over here, what I have to do is select them, and if I hold shift while I click, I can place more than one. There's one, there's two. Drag a box over them, and now when I ask them to go into this town over here, they will just follow this road. And units move much faster on roads than they do off-road. So when you want units to arrive quickly, that's what you want them to do. I'm going to use this order here in the bottom right corner, which is called Move Fast. It says here I can use F if I want to use Move Fast. So I'll press F, and I'll left click on the road here. And if I do that now, once I press Launch Battle, these two units on their motorbikes will quickly drive up this road, and they will stop right here. I don't really want them to just stop on their motorbikes in the middle of the road, because they're kind of sitting ducks then. So instead what I can use is the order called Unload at Position. And I can use the Y key if I want them to do that. So if I press that instead, and I click on one of these buildings, instead of just stopping in the road, they will drive up to this building, closer to the building, and then they will get out and try to get into this building. Now only one infantry unit at a time can occupy a building, so asking two flamethrower units to occupy this one building is maybe not the best idea. So while I drag the box over these units to select both of them, if I just want to select one of these without deselecting both at the same time, Steel Division 2 has a nice little function for that. So if I just press the Tab key, we see that one of the units here in the bottom of the screen has been highlighted. And if I now press Y, and I click on this building on the left, the previous order for the unit that isn't selected is still going. So it's still going to go and try to unload in this building, whereas this one flamethrower that I selected using the Tab key is now going to follow my orders to unload a position in this building instead. So let me try and do that with these buildings and these ones here. Let's follow the road back. Okay, this looks like the fastest way. Click on the unit again, hold shift, maybe put two more, drag a box, press tab to select one, and well, let's put one in this building, and let's put the second one in this building here. Going into this town, follow the road back, and we should be placing them about here. Let's do 2 more. Box, tab, unload at position. Let's put them here and here, hopefully, if they make it. And if I zoom out now, we can see I've got flamethrower units moving both to this small town here, these farmhouses, into the small village here in the basin. But this road here on the right and this area here in the middle are both still not covered. Now, this leads me into the other very important aspect of Steel Division 2, which is how you actually capture objectives. And you capture the objectives by having your units close to or on the objective, but not exactly like that. The mechanic that Steel Division 2 uses is called an influence line, and that's really what this red and blue lines represent. And we'll see once the game starts what that means more clearly, but for my explanation now, what we'll see is when these flamethrowers go forwards to this unit here, this red and blue line here in the middle will actually shift and move. If the blue team does not have any units near the line here, the red line will move forwards in my favor, and it might even go over this objective here, even though my units are a little bit away from it. If the influence line passes over this objective in my favor, then the game counts this objective as being mine, and so I will be then winning the game, although just slowly if I'm only holding one objective of my enemies. And likewise over here, if the blue team doesn't send any units here, this influence line will move over this objective here, even without my units being directly on top of it, and this objective will be captured in my favor. Same here. So if I don't have any units here, what's going to happen is if the blue team sends units, this influence line here that we call it the influence line, this influence line will move much further this way. It might even allow the blue team to capture this objective while only having units over here, if I have no units over here. So you're in kind of a battle for supremacy of influence lines, so to speak. If you have units on the map where your opponent has no units, then the influence line will extend into your opponent's territory severely in your favor. And if both teams have units very close to each other, the line will be directly between them. Now you can actually use this as a kind of scouting tool, because you know if you have units in this town here and the influence line is not extending more than a few buildings up, then you can be very certain that your opponent has some units here that are also holding the influence line between you. And if the influence line extends very far away from your units in your favor, then you can be certain that your opponent does not have any units. There is one exception to this, which is that recon units and anti-tank infantry actually do not affect the influence line. And this can be a very, very sneaky way to get some tank kills with a bazooka unit, as the influence line will pass over a bazooka unit like it doesn't exist, and you may think, oh, it looks like there are no units here, when in fact there are units there, and you send your tanks through this village thinking, yep, no problem, nothing to worry about here, and then boom, bye bye goes your tank. Or maybe even tanks if you are especially unfortunate. So definitely keep that in mind, but overall the main idea is put your units to try and push the influence line over these objectives. If you take objectives, your opponent's points will go down, and once your opponent's points go down to 0, you win the game. If you take more objectives, your opponent's points go down slower, and if you only take 1 or 2, your opponent's points will go down quite slowly indeed. So let's see, maybe that's enough with the flamethrower infantry on motorbikes there. Let's have a look at some anti-tank guns. Now, most of the time, because vehicles move faster on the roads, these are the places that you will want to place your anti-tank infantry or guns or tanks to protect from. And because anti-tank guns actually receive less damage when they're placed in forests, ideally that's going to be your go-to location to put them. So when I look at this right side here and I see this very long road coming straight down towards my objective, I can be fairly sure that the vehicles are going to come down this road. And if I press the C key to have a look into this forest, and I can then have a look what would be a good location to put my anti-tank gun. Now if I look at this location, this is not a very good location because it barely covers the road even within a couple of 100 meters close to where I place it. However, if we look at the other side and we say put it on this corner of the forest, it can actually see all the way down the road. If we move it to the right a bit, it can even see a little bit further into the road surrounded by the forest here. But either side will cover this road and prevent any vehicles moving down it freely, which is most of the time what you want. If your opponent can't bring their units down to the objective they want to defend, then they can't defend it. So let's put one of these Zis to 57 millimeters down here, and let's ask it to unload, let's say on this corner here. Now they don't have such great optics. We can see here on the left that it says it has good optics, and sometimes that's not enough to see everything you want. So what I'll also do is I'll take one of these recon snipers on a motorbike, and I'll also ask this sniper to unload at the same position so that it can see down the road and spot enemy units, and once those units are spotted, the anti-tank gun can shoot them. So I'll try that here on this right side, and for actually taking this objective, as I've said before, vehicles can't go through heavy forest. The more sparsely populated forest here is considered to be light forest, and vehicles can move through that. But this part here cannot be moved through by vehicles. So what I'll do is I'll take some assault infantry who are good at killing other infantry. Let's say take 2 of them and support them with 2 other squads of normal infantry. Select all of these with a box. Look at that, I accidentally grabbed the sniper. I don't want to give any more orders to that, so I'll try again. There we go. So if I press tab here, I get the 2 assault infantry units. So now the game is separating the kinds of infantry I have selected. It's not selecting them one by one. Press tab, it will select the Gavardia, who are the standard infantry. So let's ask these close range infantry to unload here. And let's also ask these Gavardia to unload here too. And then we'll send them through the forest to see if we can take this objective. Now, I said that this basin is kind of a place to get shot and chopped up if you place any units there. However, if we don't place anything to chop people up on our side of the defensive hills here, then enemy units will not be chopped up because there will not be anything to chop them up with. So with this little hill here, if we zoom in, we can see it is a hill, this one here. This gives us a nice line of sight over pretty much the whole basin. So this would also be a very nice place to put an anti-tank gun. So let's put one of those. And also an anti-infantry gun to kill infantry. As we said before, the AP and APCR shells cannot shoot soft targets. So that's why we want these infantry guns. They can shoot soft targets. And bring another recon unit here so that they can actually see things that they want to shoot. So let's just tell all of them to unload at this forest here. And then on this side here, just the 2-man flamethrower squads are not really going to be enough to hold locations for very long at all, if they can hold it at all to begin with. So I think if I put some infantry into this forest, they will be able to move through the forest here unseen, and maybe jump across through these small gaps to keep pushing upwards here. And I can apply the same reasoning to these forests here. Putting infantry in these forests, they will be very difficult to see unless the enemy comes very close. So let's put some more of these assault infantry. Let's put all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Drag a box. Let's send 2 into this forest. And let's send 2. 1 here and 1 here. That sounds fine. We'll support those with some normal infantry too. Let's say 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Why 3? I don't want to spend all of my points. So I'm just going to send these Gavardia squads along with my anti-infantry units, because the anti-infantry units don't actually have any anti-tank weapons. Although it does say anti-tank grenade there, it's just a Molotov cocktail. Whereas the Gavardia units here do have a real anti-tank grenade. So any tanks or vehicles that come too close to them, they will actually be able to destroy them fairly easily. And then I have a very large open area here, and it looks like an anti-tank gun in this forest would do a good job of cutting off this road. So that's what I'll do. Where's my anti-tank gun? Here it is. The road back goes to here. Let's put the anti-tank gun here. And let's ask it to unload right at this corner here. That's fine. And I could even bring tanks to do a similar job here. However, the tanks I have are either quite light tanks, the T-3476, or are quite expensive heavy tanks, the IS-1 Komroti. Ideally, most of the time, I try to put infantry down first, so that you can actually have some kind of defensive measures in place to hold the influence line and not have salients or spikes going over your objectives, so that you begin the game losing, in a losing position. Ideally, that's not how you want to begin. Now, another thing I've noticed here is that there's a very heavy forest on the side of the map that will allow infantry to travel up it unmolested. So I might just send 1 infantry unit there. I've run out of anti-tank infantry here, but what I'll do is I'll send 1 of these, or maybe 2 of these flamethrowers, along with the infantry into that forest. Tell them all just to unload here, and I'll send them up this forest here to see if I can do a little sneak attack. On this side here, no, not on this side here, I think that's done. I'm just looking at this small part here. I might send a tank down here just to try and grab this objective here. Now if I send him down this road, he'll be quite exposed to these hills, I think. So if I send him down this road instead, sorry, this road would be safer, I think, or alternatively he could just travel off-road along this ridge, and he can't really be spotted by much as he goes this way, other than this one small forest here. So if I gamble that my opponent will not have any anti-tank units in this forest, I think my tank could probably move unmolested over to this ridge and maybe capture this objective. Now, moving your units across the terrain in such a way like that requires a little bit of customization, but it's not so difficult. So let's put 1 tank here. And first let's ask the tank to move fast with F to here. And then after that I'm going to hold shift to queue an order and right click here, and then after that I'm going to use Q, which is hunt, and still while holding shift, to ask my tank to move over here. Now this way, with right click, which is the light blue, the tank will only move. It's only focusing on moving. That's its primary directive. Dark blue here is move fast, so they prioritize using roads. And then the orange line here is the hunt order, so the tank will try to move this way, but if it can spot anything to shoot at, it will stop to shoot primarily first. And then after it does not have anything it can shoot at any further, it will continue moving. So I have 100 points left. 2 flamethrowers going into this town, but otherwise this flag here isn't really well defended. So what can I do to prevent an enemy coming down here and just taking this flag from me? Well, see, there are some buildings here, 2 buildings. If I hold C over the building, it will tell me what line of sight would an infantry unit or a machine gun, for example, have if I place them into this building. So these are pretty good lines of sight. So what I could do, if I had a heavy machine gun, I could put it in there, but I don't. What I can do instead is just put a single infantry squad, ask them to go down this road and unload in this building. And maybe I can also send a tank down here just in case, and ask it to quick hunt. Quick hunt. Quick hunt is the end key. Quick hunt combines fast move and hunt, so it will move as fast as it can along roads, and if it encounters an enemy unit, it will engage that unit. Now I'm now left with 30 points. So one other thing that I might want to consider is, although I only have two flamethrower squads in here, I might want to consider putting something more substantial in there to hold the position, especially if there are any vehicles or tanks coming down this road. So I'll put one more infantry unit that has anti-tank weapons into one of the buildings here. That leaves me with only 10 points, and so it's time to launch the game. So pressing launch, all of the units then begin moving according to the orders that you gave them. And for the most part now, you're just going to have to wait and watch until you can see some enemy units and decide whether you want to change the orders that you've given your units. Now, one of the really useful things you can do as a new player when playing the game is using the buttons over here to either slow the game down to half speed or to pause the game entirely. And I definitely recommend doing this when you're first playing the game. Just play at a normal speed first, wait until you can see something, and once you see something, pause the game and think about what's going to happen next and how can you come out on top. So if I pause the game now, the first thing we can see here is the influence line has extended significantly ahead of these two flamethrower troops. So if I kind of try to measure the distance here between these flamethrower troops and the edge of the influence line here, we see it's about 1,000 meters. So I could probably guesstimate that enemy units are perhaps 2,000 meters away currently, maybe over here on these roads or in this forest. This shows me that there is a truck coming, it appears, or a fast car. And also over here, it seems there are other units coming in a car too. So it looks like these flamethrower units won't make it to this village in time. This tank looks like it will come in handy for taking care of some things over here. And this symbol here, the question mark over the unit's card, as we call it, shows that you don't actually know exactly what this unit is yet because you don't have sufficient recon, or your units aren't close enough to see exactly and identify the unit, so it just gives you a kind of silhouette and says there's something coming, it's a vehicle, but other than that, you know, we're not going to tell you what it is until you get a better look. And although I do have a recon unit here, the sniper, quite close to this unit, the sniper is still on its transport, and so it doesn't actually have very good optics while it's still in its transport. Let's keep playing at a slow speed. Let's see what happens here. So the truck is coming, the sniper is going to the forest, and I'm going to tell the sniper unload here. Sniper unloads. Sniper is about to shoot at this building, or it's not, it's going to shoot at the infantry over here. This traction is a very fast vehicle, and so now I'm stuck with a unfortunate situation of having these two units, which I suspect might be flamethrowers, in very close proximity to my sniper, and they will definitely beat out my sniper in close combat. I have a huge salient here, and we can see there are enemy units, perhaps it looks like armored vehicles, moving along this road here, and there is also a salient here against me, so perhaps, well, we can see there are none of my own enemy units, my own enemy. There are none of my own units here on the map. And so exactly what I said would happen is happening. The opponent does have some units here, and it is pushing the influence line quite significantly against me, as I am pushing it quite significantly against them on this side. So my flamethrower unit did not make it to that farmhouse thanks to these recon units here. Now these recon vehicles are very fast, and because they are recon, they can see very far. And so now everything I have here, all of these infantry units in their trucks have been spotted by these recon units, and they're probably going to have quite a bad time if I don't unload them. Now I did bring an anti-tank gun here, and I do have a tank moving along, or still moving here, and my primary idea was that I was going to move it behind the ridge here. But as somebody once said, planning is invaluable. Or all plans fail, but planning itself is invaluable. So just because my primary idea was for the tank to go over here doesn't mean I can't change that. And looking at what the enemy has brought, I'd say it's probably more prudent if I just select my tank, click on Quick Hunt, and ask it to come up to this road here to engage these recon vehicles. And likewise with my anti-tank gun here, I will ask that to unload. And then after it unloads, it may also be able to begin shooting at these recon vehicles. So let's see how this goes for my small convoy. Here comes one shell, shooting the anti-tank gun and not my infantry, which is fortunate. In comes another shell. My anti-tank gun returns fire. 2 misses from the recon vehicles there, and misses 2 from my anti-tank gun. In comes my tank to help with that. Now if I pause the game again here and we have a look at what's happening. If we go back over to the right side, the flamethrower unit here did take care of my sniper unit and is quite capable of taking care of this anti-tank gun too. So that's the advantage of having very fast transport units. You can get right up into your opponent's face and stop them from utilizing tactics that are favorable to them. So if I just grab these infantry here, and I ask one to hunt this way and one to hunt this way, and the same for the 2 Gavardia units. My other infantry here has also unloaded, or at least the flamethrowers. And if I just ask these guys to hunt up here, they will run along there too. Now it looks like here that the opponent isn't actually bringing any units down this way. So it's probably quite easy for me to move these flamethrower units further up, and to do so quite quickly. What is happening here? Gavardia. Ask them to go over there. And because 1 minute has passed, I have received my 140 points of income. So something I might want to do now is perhaps try to fix this salient that is currently causing me to lose an objective, and almost another one here. These 2 have been taken from the enemy. So maybe I will ask a tank to come down here, and maybe also I can get these units to move to the side of the forest here, so that they can see and engage any enemies that are perhaps over here. This anti-tank gun has been pinned down by these 2 recon vehicles and will probably perish quite shortly. So I'm not going to have the anti-tank gun that I wanted in this forest. So before it actually dies, what I can do is just buy another one and click here, and it will be bought and it will drive somewhere from either this road or this road down to that position. So I'm resupplying, I'm reinforcing in advance of units dying rather than waiting for everything to go terribly before I do so. Now in this case I might also ask this anti-tank gun to move away from these flamethrower units, because I really don't want it to die. And press play again. Let's see how that goes. So the flamethrower units are moving down the forest here, and my anti-tank gun is actually safe for the moment. Looks like so even my even my tank couldn't defeat these two recon vehicles, so I will probably need to bring another one as well. So buy another tank and place it over here. My two flamethrower units on the left side here in this town successfully unloaded, but we can see by the influence line here that actually there are probably some other units in this town too, because the influence line isn't extending far enough. What I'll do is I'll just do a little probe. Ask this one to go here, ask this one to go here, and see how that goes for me. These units here that have unloaded can start moving down through the forest. And from moving these units that I put into the forest to the left side, I've actually revealed some enemy units. So what I might do here is, instead of moving my Gavardia unit through the forest, in anticipation of this truck moving up here, no, it looks like it's turned around, so I don't need to do that. I take it back. Let's see if these guys will do any shooting for me. I clicked the wrong unit there. I don't want these to travel so far. So let's see, these flamethrowers have encountered an enemy tank, and flamethrowers are quite bad at killing tanks, as you might imagine. They're not exactly suited to that role. What I can do is still ask these infantry to capture this heavy forest over here. And because I don't have any more points, there isn't really anything I can do about this tank at the moment. So I just have to wait. These infantry units are now being bombarded and shot by my sniper and anti-infantry gun, and a tank is also on its way this way. So hopefully this salient here will be destroyed fairly shortly. And it looks like I can move my infantry into the forest here. I'll keep one line infantry back here, and I'll send both of the close quarters infantry. Let's try and take this objective here. And here we spot some more infantry, so I will send these directly into them to engage. Because pioneers, I know, have grenades. And grenades are not very good for your health. And as we see, grenades, bad for your health. Recon vehicle here. And my tank is once again losing quite badly. So all my infantry, you can see here in this forest, have all suddenly died inexplicably. Not inexplicably, I'm fairly sure I know they were shot by something, but inexplicably in that I did not see how they died. Now, my infantry on the right side here have successfully infiltrated and captured this objective for me, so I might just send them now to go into this heavy forest too, and ask my line infantry to perhaps occupy this building next to the objective to retain stronger control of it. And this is how the battle's going to go. You're going to win some of your engagements, and you're going to lose some of your engagements, and as you lose you need to consider how to reinforce, and as you win, such as on the right side here and the left side to some extent, you also need to consider whether you want to send more units that way to push your advantage, or whether you would rather allow them to just capture some point and hold that, and then focus on the other areas where you know your opponents have much more units. But I'm not going to play the whole match. This is just supposed to be a beginner's guide to how you can play. So, I covered some of the things, I guess not all of the things. I do still have some air units I have. So how about I use an air unit very quickly. I do have enough points. I have an IL-2 M3 here, and so if I click on this plane and I press play, nothing happens when the game is paused. Repause the game, I actually have the plane down here. So just buying the plane doesn't automatically bring it onto the battlefield. It's just allowed to be brought onto the battlefield when you choose. So what I do is I click on the plane here, and then I'm going to right click on the thing I wanted to destroy. And at the moment this anti-tank gun is being a bit of a pain in the butt for me. So I'll right click on this anti-tank gun and press play, and we will be able to watch now as my plane comes in for the bombing run, and perhaps as my tank dies too. Yep, there it goes. And so what's happened now, this is a good example. What's happened now is my plane has actually lost sight of the anti-tank gun because there's nothing to see it. Now if I can remember where it was, I might be able to still bomb it. I think it was around here somewhere. Let's do that and press play. And so if I use the fire POS, which is down here, the plane will bomb just wherever you click, even if you can't see enemy units there. So in it goes, down go the bombs, and boom. Now because I do have Winchester evacuation turned off, the plane isn't just going to leave. And so what I can do is I can ask this plane to then engage another soft target of my choosing, perhaps some infantry over here just by right clicking, and then if I press play, the plane will do its best to make its way over there to engage these soft targets as you asked. Again, it lost sight, so it would just shoot at the ground, and instead of wasting its ammunition that way, I just right click. Now if I want the plane to actually evacuate, I have to use this button down here. If I click that, the plane will then go home, and I can't control it anymore. So this center area has most definitely been lost on my side. It's difficult to play and explain at the same time, I have to say. Artillery, I could show artillery I guess as well. If I bring this artillery unit in this way, and let's put some more recon maybe over here, let's put an infantry into the forest here, and let's put another tank here, because I'm not tired of them dying yet. Down goes the flamethrower unit over there. My tank fortunately does manage to take out that recon vehicle, and I have a huge salient here of losing objectives. Ask my tank to move this way, and this heavy IS-1 should quite easily take care of any other tanks it encounters. So this is the off-map artillery unit that I mentioned before, and all I'm going to do here is move it quickly down the road until it's in position to fire on this forest here. Make sure to unload your units once they arrive, otherwise they will just sit inside of their trucks, and that's not really the best use for them. And I just lost my my off-map artillery truck on the road here by not paying attention to it. That's my fault. Do I have another one? I think probably not. so I won't be able to show that one right now. And it looks like I did manage to hit that anti-tank gun with my bombs earlier, because it is on very low health. It will be killed now by my tank. And thanks to losing that, now the influence line is almost pushing together here, and if it does do that, then any units here will be completely cut off from the influence line. So if I keep pushing with my IS-1 here to try and achieve that, let's see what happens. So there's a supply truck here, and it looks like my infantry managed to use their anti-tank weapons against that tank. I can ask these ones to do similarly against this Stug here. Whether they will achieve it or not is to be seen. And they did achieve it, I'm quite impressed. Good job, guys, very nice. And I have almost regained all control of these objectives, and the objectives are now 16 and 8 in my favor, which will make my opponent's points go down quite quickly and end the match in, it says, 14 minutes and 41 seconds if it remains at 16 and 8. So it looks like the AI is actually completely ignoring this right side of the map, so I don't really need to do anything other than just keep holding it, to be honest. And I am accumulating quite a lot of points by explaining a lot and doing little, which is on me. You shouldn't do that. Always focus on the points you have, and every minute try to be thinking of, ways that you can spend them. I found another anti-tank gun here that would be nice to be blown up with a plane. Some infantry leaders here that I think would be nice to be blown up with a plane. This one might die anyway before the plane can get there. If we check, yes. The IS-1 should fire one more time and it should be dead. There we go. My plane is going in for the infantry here. They go down. Ask these planes now to engage in some strafing runs. The one infantry unit here is about to be killed, and I have much better control over the map than a few minutes ago. So zooming out, we can see now that I own maybe 2/3 of the map, going on 3/4. And I was losing for a short period of time over here by losing these objectives, but the way the game usually works is that you don't need to be winning all the time, and you can even be losing the game for 15-20 minutes. And as long as you're not losing too badly, you can then still come back later, retake all the objectives you lost, take objectives from your enemy, and actually win the game. So some advice on that is to not be disheartened. In most cases, the influence line will go back and forth. There will be points that you lose, and there will be points that you win. That's all part of the game. So unfortunately, I didn't get to show you one of the things, which was the off-map artillery, but hopefully that's a good enough basic explanation of how you can play the game and how different things work. So hopefully that helps you. Thanks for watching, and come back next time.